Ribeiro, or riverbank in the Galician language, is the oldest of the 5 Denominaciones de Origen in Galicia. The first vines were planted here at the time of the Romans, and wine production really expanded with the settlement of the Benedictine religious order between the 11th and 13th centuries. Then as now, vineyards were grouped along the 3 river valleys formed by the Miño, Avia and Arnoia rivers. And healthy exports, coupled with the winery's position on the pilgrims' route to Santiago de Compostela, ensured that the fame of Ribeiro wines grew. Overshadowed slightly by its more famous Galician neighbour Rías Baixas, nevertheless, Ribeiro is well known nowadays as a source of wonderful blended white wines made from native local grape varieties like Treixadura, Torrontés, Godello or Loureira, and a growing collection of artisanal small production red wines made with native grapes. There are just under 4,000 hectares of vines planted in the region, but over 5,000 registered growers. So you can see that, as elsewhere in Galicia, vineyard plots tend to be quite small. And in terms of production, Ribeiro has about 115 registered wineries, known as adegas in the Galician language, who will grow some of their own grapes, but also buy in grapes from the growers around them. Ribeiro's position on the banks of the 3 rivers makes for quite rolling terrain, with steep riverbanks which can be difficult to farm. In landscapes such as these, winemakers often create terraces in their vineyards to make the land easier to access, and they position their vines in such a way as to make the most of the available sunlight and facilitate access come harvest time. Soils in Ribeiro have quite a high granite content. Sabrego is the local word used to describe the decomposed granite soils typically found in the area. And it often has quite a loamy, silty texture on the surface. As for the climate, people often describe Ribeiro as a transition area. And by this they mean it's a climate kind of halfway between the wet, moderate Atlantic climate of Rías Baixas, 45 kilometres to the west, and the more continental climate of central Spain, characterised by lower rainfall and a wider temperature variation between day and night and between the seasons. The mountain chains to the west of the DO tend to protect it from some of the wetter, squallier weather of the Atlantic coast and ensure a greater range of temperatures, which really helps the grapes to ripen slowly and steadily, which helps ensure really aromatic fruit and lots of natural acidity and freshness, which winemakers love. Ribeiro is also home to a lot of Galicia's native white grape varieties and a good place to continue your Spanish white wine education. One of our favourites is probably Treixadura, which is a main component in many of Ribeiro's white blends and a wonderfully aromatic grape with lots of stone fruit, white flowers and citrus notes. But also look out for Torrontés, which again gives fruit and flower aromas combined perhaps with a touch of hay, or Godello, which is more intense, honeyed, unctuous, and is often used to add volume and smoothness to Ribeiro's white wine blends. But what about the reds? Well, as in next door Rías Baixas, producers in Ribeiro are starting to bottle some of the region's native red varieties, like Caíño, which you'll find in various types, like Caíño Longo, Caíño Bravo, or Caíño Tinto. Also, look out for Brancellao or Sousson. Production's still relatively small scale, and like the whites, you'll often find them blended together with other red varieties to give wines which, by Spanish standards, tend to be relatively low in alcohol and usually quite aromatic. So to sum up, if you've started your Galician wine journey in Rías Baixas and are a fan of Albariño, Ribeiro is a really obvious next step. Comparisons are always tricky, but some people recommend Ribeiro as a place for very approachable, enjoyable wines that might fit halfway between, say, a richer, riper Chardonnay and a fresher, zestier Sauvignon Blanc. Remember, Vineyard plots are small and winery output is usually quite modest, so the wines can cost a bit more than in other parts of Spain. But if you're looking to expand your white wine cellar or explore beyond the Tempranillo-based reds of central Spain, this corner of Galicia is a must.